So here is Michael to tell you more about his research and about the 2008 election.
Thank you, Laura, and thanks to you and to the Brennan Center for putting on this important conference and for asking me to help start it off. For the past 5 years, the Campaign Finance Institute has made the role of small donors the centerpiece of our research and policy agenda. So I'm delighted to be sharing a part of what we've learned. Of course, one reason the small donors have such visibility stems from the spectacular success of the Obama presidential campaign. And during the heat of the campaign, many were inclined to take the campaign's obvious successes as signs of a new era. And what we were asked on this panel is whether this was so. Now, in some ways, the answer clearly is yes. There's no doubt in my mind that the substance of the campaign finance debate has reached a decisive turning point. I've been writing professionally about this subject for 35 years. For most of that time, the main subject of conversation has been about reducing corruption or the appearance of corruption, and the main tools used to serve those ends have been to limit contributions and spending. It has become clear, painfully clear to some, joyfully clear to others, that there are limits to what you can accomplish through limits. I support contribution limits. I think they do serve to decrease the specific problems that come from candidates asking for and receiving large sums of money, the dialing for dollars phenomenon that previous speakers talked about. But contributions cannot and do not limit spending. The constitutional protections for independent spending, including spending by parties, assures this. But the real problem with the nearly exclusive focus on limits in the past has been the tunnel vision that it brought on the debate. The goals served by limits have largely been defined in terms of what they're trying to prevent. Corruption, the appearance of corruption, or undue influence. Those are real issues, yes. But when CFI started that small donor project, we wanted to turn the focus away from what we thought was a nearly exclusive focus on trying to prevent bad things toward what kinds of positive goals are we trying to accomplish? What kind of democracy are we trying to foster? Now, political scientists typically talk about a broad range of goals when they talk about money in politics. We talk about, I think of them for simplicity's term as the 4 C's, corruption being one, the others being competition, candidate emergence, and citizen participation. Now, of those goals, CFI has spent a lot of its time on promoting equality through enhanced participation. Equality requires more than squeezing down the top. It doesn't matter how much you squeeze the top, that will not mobilize the inactive to become active. Squeezing the top is intrinsically frustrating, and useful though it may be for some purposes, it's marginal for many others. The key, we suspected, was to think about building up the bottom. Notice the words, we suspected. There's a lot we didn't know. So in the next few years, we were spent with a 3-part research agenda, and is continuing, that asks the following. First, is there enough of a difference between small and large donors for us to care whether there are more small donors in the system? And the answer, I'm not going to go into all the research because of the time here, but I tell you that this is on our website, is that yes, they are different. And moreover, there is, appears to be an organic connection between giving and doing, between contributing and volunteering, that is, getting active. But the second, assuming that the small donors are different, we ask whether it's plausible to imagine a large enough increase in the small donor participation to have a noticeable impact on the system. In some ways, the presidential race would seem to answer that, but the question is that an anomaly? And finally, we ask whether there's a role for public policy to play, or does the internet success of a few candidates, such as Howard Dean and Barack Obama, mean the issue will take care of itself? To answer some of those questions, I'll ask you to look at some data with me. These are this is funds raised by the presidential candidates during the primaries. You will get a better chance to stare at more detailed tables in the paper that Laura mentioned. that is available to all of you. But the first few columns talks about where did the candidates get their money during the primary season, and it's listed by the contributions the candidates received. And these left three are the ones this is the way the story got reported most of the year by the press, including and by us. It's 49% of the contributions received by Barack Obama were for $200 or less, and then this shows, where did it go? This shows for all the other candidates. And one of the interesting things is this number accounts for the entire difference between Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. That is, his entire advantage came in those small contributions, and those were the source of his volunteer advantage that led to his victories in the caucus states, which in turn led to his victory. When you look at the numbers, when you take the numbers that a donor gives and you pull together the multiple contributions by the same donor, the picture is somewhat different. Not radically different, but it's somewhat different. Instead of getting 40, I mean, it's one fact is he received 49% of his contributions in small amounts. The other fact is that he received 26% of his money from donors who aggregated to $200 or less. And he received 27% from people who aggregated to between $201 and $999, and a very large number of those, about half, were people who were repeaters who crossed the $200 threshold. Again, that middle number is pretty high. This number of 200 or less is more or less equivalent to Bush, but both of them are higher than most other top-tier candidates in the past years. And part of that is reflecting the internet. In Obama's case, you do have this enthusiasm catching on for multiple contributions. Why do I even mention the difference between why does anybody think it was a little tip when we put out these numbers sometimes, but why do you look at these two numbers? They tell you different things. If what you're interested in primarily is, are the donors the sort of people who will buy access? Then you really don't care much. If people give $100 multiple times and get to 500, those are not access buyers. So from the point of view of that aspect of policy, that left column tells you a lot. But if you're interested in looking at participation down the ladder, the participation by most people, by average people, the other number is one that you want to look at.